Okay, so like I said, welcome everyone back to the series here with Kerry PPN on managing and developing projects. So as I said, tonight's workshop is focusing purely on sustaining community projects after they started. So as I was saying in the previous nights, a lot of work we do is working with groups and getting the projects kind of funded or getting them started in terms of project planning and kind of developing business plans and strategic plans for projects, and then in some cases getting grant aid for them. Normally at that point, we don't really get involved in terms of the kind of day-to-day operational management of the projects or the drawdown of grant aid and all that. But it is an area where a lot of groups struggle with in terms of they get the funding and then they kind of find it hard to sustain the projects afterwards because the funding's gone, or the grant aid might have been for a temporary project or for capital works, and now they're struggling to keep the doors open because they don't have a strategy in place to bring in money on a regular basis. So what we're going to focus on tonight is that in terms of how you sustain community projects in the long term. And like obviously with all community projects and services, they're pretty much when they start, they're going to be needed in the community for for as long as required. So some projects will be going on for years and years and years, and some organizations are established decades ago and are still in existence and are always struggling to kind of keep going every year. So what I want to try and do tonight, which is basically give you kind of some ideas in terms of what we do, in terms of helping groups be more organized and focused in terms of raising money and sustaining their projects. So the agenda is basically looking at, I suppose, first of all, is there an ongoing sustainable need for the service or facilities? What basically means is that is there an actual demand there for the services and facilities that you have? Which might sound kind of crazy, but in a lot of cases, it's things that happen in areas and communities where population changes. So like we worked in housing estates years ago in Tralee and in Dublin. I worked in Dublin where there was a very young population. And now, like say 30 or not 30 years on, but 25 years on, that young population are now in their 30s and have moved on and haven't moved back to the areas. So what was planned for those areas back when I was working there was looking at youth projects and developing young persons projects and childcare facilities. Now what they need is basically service for older people because the population has got very old in those communities. So a lot of the estates around Tralee, for example, would have been very young. People there when they were built, back in the early 80s. Now they're would be considered an older estate and with an older population. And the same with, let's say, look at depopulation in rural areas where clubs, for example, are struggling at the moment to field teams. So they would have got like lots of funding back in the 90s to invest in their club facilities, but now they're struggling to put teams together because the population isn't there. So a lot of times we look at if you're developing a project, is there a need for the long term? And that's based on looking at the demographics and so on. The operation structure is really in terms of who's going to do the work to actually manage the project. Is there a kind of a governance structure in place, like a committee in place, and also is there staff or at least volunteers in place to do kind of day-to-day work on the ground. And then we'll spend a lot of time this evening looking at the fundraising side of it in terms of how to not just fundraising, but looking at in terms of how you can generate revenue to keep the show on the road. So I suppose this is something like that you're all very familiar with. So the crowd on the left there, they got the grant, they're happy out, they're high-fiving, they're delighted themselves, they got the funding. And then 6 months later, that's what they're like. They're stressed out, they're dealing with paperwork, bureaucracy, hassle, and they probably think, I wish we never got the funding. And that's what we see constantly with groups that they get the grant aid and then it's such a nightmare a lot of times to draw down some funds and to deal with the bureaucracy that's involved in regulations and red tape and everything else in paperwork that they kind of feel, geez, for goodness sake, we probably won't do it, So it goes from being kind of ecstatic and elated to like being kind of like burnt out and just annoyed with the whole thing. So my job really tonight is going to show that, where we can, I suppose, I'm not going to be able to eliminate the paperwork and the bureaucracy goes along with it, but I suppose just being more organised will help some way, and getting people around you to help with it is important as well. So the key thing with any project is that it has to be service users, clients, members, whatever you want to call them. So I call them clients because it just gets being focused on thinking them as people that are going to use the service. So it might be called service users, or if you're a club, they'd be called members. And there has to be enough there to justify the need for the service in the first place, and there has to be enough coming through to justify it long term. Human resources, that have been placed to manage the project and run the project. So they're your coaches, your volunteers, your administrators, your carers, your childcare staff, anyone that's basically on the ground, either paid or unpaid as a volunteer, doing the work of your organization. So where your organizations come in is that you're providing services that aren't being provided by the public sector, or not being provided by the private sector, they're being provided by the community volunteer sector. And someone has to provide the services, and that's where we and ye come in to provide those services. And 99% of that is done on a voluntary basis. So the human resources, in a lot of cases, with lots of groups, they're not paid, they're volunteers, and working a lot of hours on a voluntary basis due for those organizations. And then finally, you have to have a sustainable revenue stream. So what I mean by sustainable revenue stream, if you're relying completely on fundraising the whole time, that's not sustainable. If you're relying on grant aid the whole time, that's not sustainable. You have to have a kind of healthy mix of funding, because you're reliant on any one of those streams, and that stream of funding is cut or taken away completely. So all the services you're providing or facilities you're providing will come to stop, and that's one of the negative impacts on the people that you're supporting and helping. So we're as people that work within the sector, you've kind of got a lot of responsibilities on your shoulders, because you're providing a service where no one else will provide that service. You're providing facilities where no one else is providing those facilities. And you're kind of responsible for keeping those going, because you've kind of raised expectations within your community that they'll always be there. And without funding, they're not going to be there. So you have to make sure there's a sustainable revenue stream coming through constantly. And that's a challenge for all of us in terms of working in the sector. So when I talk about demand, the first thing, I will cover this in the first slide when we talk about project planning, is there enough of demand? So I think I gave an example on the first slide of a group of up in West Limerick who asked us to do a feasibility study on developing a childcare facility in the community. And before I did any work on it, I kind of did a bit of research, and I found that there was no house being built in the area because of population and project planning. No families moving to the area because of the fact there's no housing. And there was about 10 or 15 kids that were between the ages of, say, zero and school going age of 4 or 5, let's say, right? So the 15 kids that needed the facility, but I was struggling to see where the other kids would come from after those kids went to national school. So in 5 years' time, my argument was that when they go to national school, there is no other kids going to be in the area, because there's no families moving to the area. And unless the existing families have more children, you're going to run out of children basically for the facility. So there wasn't enough demand to justify spending €1 million on a creche at the time. So they didn't do it. Because if they had done it, they would have probably gone through the process of building a creche. It would have probably taken 2 to 3 years to build it. At that stage, there'd only be 7 kids of the age that the rest of them would be gone to national school. So they would have built something for €1 million that when they opened the doors, they literally would have enough demand before they opened, let alone after they opened after a couple of years. So you have to look at long term in terms of what's the demand. Will there always be demand? How is the demand going to change? So as I said, communities change, so areas get older. If there's more younger people moving into an area, the population is getting older, so the services required are different. And then what's your capacity in terms of, if there's a huge demand, can you cope with that level of numbers? So a lot of clubs in towns, for example, are struggling with numbers because they just don't have the facilities to cope with all the numbers of kids coming through and members coming through. Then you've got the complete opposite in rural areas where they've got plenty of capacity, but just don't have the numbers coming in because the population is not there. So, it's probably no harm for everyone to do kind of an analysis of their census, the 2022 census for their areas, to see what's happening in terms of the population in the areas, in terms of age profile, family size, where the main kind of, I suppose, what's the main population segment? So is it like older, 30 to 45, 30 to 55, or is it younger? So when we're looking at planning for service facilities, we're looking at those age brackets to see how many people would be in the area over a long period of time. So if you're developing youth services, you have to look at the number of babies or young people between 0 and 5 that will be in the market, let's say, for secondary school in 7 years' time. So you're looking at projecting ahead. And that's really important because you have to show that in your application funding that this is long-term and sustainable, Okay. The data then is basic market research to look and see what's, how many people are out there, look at your census information. This 2002 census data is available online now. You can go into very, very local level detail and give you the breakdown of age, family size, etc. Local evidence. So again, you're living locally in the community, you kind of know what's happening. So before the census is done, how many people have moved into the area, how many families moved into the area, who's had a baby in the last 2 months, who's had a baby in the last year, how many houses have been built, is there issues with planning permission, is there places closing because there's no demand or footfall. So yourselves from living in a local area in terms of what's the kind of the scenario locally. You can do surveys. So a lot of groups now over the last 5 years, because there was no census information available, they did their own census or surveys locally to get kind of numbers. And then all that you can look at, you might have capacity to do more within your organization. More often that you probably wouldn't have capacity to do what you have, but in some cases groups have capacity. So you ask them, who else can we support? Who else can we be supporting with the service we're providing or with the facilities we have? Or what else can we do? So a lot of community centres, for example, in rural areas would be utilised a lot during the day. So you're always looking at how can we get people in during the day for maybe fitness classes or training courses or just social gatherings or book clubs or whatever it might be. So you're always saying, okay, how can we utilize the facilities more? So you really find out what the need is and where the demand is, and where you can see where that demand is growing and justify the continuous need for the service in the first place. Just like a business, any business, you're always looking for how many customers are out there. Is there enough customers there, and will those customers be there long term, and will more customers come in to keep things going? So it's the exact same thing with a not-for-profit organization. In your case, you're not in many cases charging for the services. You're just basically providing the services, but you still need to see if there's demand there. So once you've looked at the funding in terms of the sorry. Okay, so once you've seen where the demand is, so once you've identified that there's going to be continuous demand for the services that you have, and you know that long term we have that demand there and we can justify it and we justify the need, and you've developed a project, you now need to look at putting together the team of people that are going to run the services. And primarily what I'm dealing with is voluntary organizations that don't have any paid staff. They might have employment scheme workers with them, but probably 70 or 80% of the staffing is done on a voluntary basis. We have other organizations that are core funded through different organizations, and they would have paid coordinators or managers or CEOs, and they would have maybe paid administration staff and maybe paid support workers as well, or development workers. But they'd also rely on volunteers, especially at board level, because we're all voluntary boards. So this is what the kind of structure we showed in the first slide, but again, it's a kind of sample kind of structure of any organization. So you have your group, whether it be a CLG, company limited by guarantee, or a constituted group. That group will have a general manager or coordinator, where there's core funding available. Otherwise, it won't have anyone kind of, as a paid manager. There might be someone there in a management role, but not in terms of being a paid staff member. You have an executive committee or management committee or steering committee. That would be the manager, or if there's a manager in place, the chairperson, secretary, and treasurer. You more than likely would have a finance committee or a facilities management committee, depending on what project you have or what you're running or operating. And then typically you have a fundraising and marketing committee. So this committee would be responsible for fundraising and marketing, and kind of basically making people aware of the services that are available and bringing in the money. And these other two then will be kind of more dealing with the kind of day-to-day kind of strategic and management of the operations. You might have paid staff. Or you might have employment schemes like RSS schemes, or rural social scheme, or community employment schemes, or two schemes, which are becoming difficult because people find it hard to recruit on those schemes. But a lot of organizations are completely reliant on them because it's the only source of paid staff that they have. And then volunteers will be your main source of staffing, basically. Okay, so your volunteers, and they're kind of the backbone of every community, but pretty much every organization that you come across volunteer effort is massive. Also I could include there, like, maybe student placements from the colleges, or TY students from schools that come in, help out as well, possibly obviously for a period of time, and they can be a very valuable asset to organizations. And that's what the key thing is, that use some sort of way of managing the numbers and managing the rota. So a key thing with organizations is that they might have the numbers, but they're very bad at organizing people. So that example, that might be Ty Town's group, where one Saturday morning you've got 5 people turn up, and then the following Saturday like 50 people turn up, and 45 of those are just hanging around doing nothing because there's nothing to do. And then the following week they don't show up anymore because they're the same thing. So it's kind of, there's no management of people. Same with clubs. You see it where you might have a club where you might have, like, one training session, 5 coaches turn up, and then the next training session, like, 1 coach turns up and they can't do the session. So it's down to rota scheme, same as any business where you got staff or working. Volunteers are the same. You need to kind of put a rota in place, make sure that one volunteer is not doing all the work, that there's good spread of volunteers, there's good spread of workload, and everyone's aware of what they're supposed to do. So it's really important that when you're working with volunteers, that you have very clear defined roles for them. What I like to do is kind of put volunteers into various different departments. So a volunteer would only work in a department or an area where they want to work. So for example, in a club, you might have a volunteer who wants to get involved in coaching but doesn't want to get involved in fundraising. Or you might have a volunteer who doesn't want to get involved in coaching at all, doesn't want to be near the actual grounds, but with no problem volunteering in terms of doing the social media updates, or sending out texts or WhatsApps to the parents, or getting involved in fundraising or marketing, but they don't want to get involved in coaching. And everyone's all very valuable. So you put them into areas where they want to work and don't want to work. So for example, Kerry Cancer Support and Recovery Haven would have a lot of volunteers working with them. So take Recovery Haven, for example, would have a huge amount of volunteers working in the organization, and they've got specific, let's say, volunteer roles. So you have listeners, you've got people that get involved in fundraising, you got people involved in helping out in maintaining the garden in the centre there, and they don't cross over. So they might get involved in maybe some fundraising, but they're not responsible for fundraising, or the volunteer listeners or won't be involved in doing the gardening or whatever it might be. So they're all very clearly identify what they want to do. They work in areas where they want to work, and they got skills and they can bring value, and they're not asked to do like those things. And it's a really good structure, because even though they work very long hours and they do put in a lot of volunteer effort in, there's no burnout there, because they're doing something they like doing. They're not doing something that they don't like doing. And you find the volunteers who get burnt out quickly, where they're asked to do every single thing. And that's down to just basically, one, this was the lack of volunteers, but 2, where there is a lot of volunteers, just bad management of their time. So it's really important that you look at the rota system. It's really important that you evaluate too who's putting the effort in, who's not, who's putting all the hours, who's not, and spread that around, and call people up and say, look, if you're putting your name to a volunteer. If you don't want to volunteer, there'll be no problem with it, but just don't say you're going to do something and don't do it. So it's important that that one, they know what they're doing, and 2, they respect it, because volunteers are without them, they're not going to be able to survive and sustain any projects, regardless of how much money you have. Okay. The board then would be, if you have a board or management team or management committee, you'd have community reps that are coming from a community background, which would be more than 70% of any board would be made up of people that are from the community, that are there because they want to give something to the community, want to help provide service and facilities. And then you look for identify key skilled people and experienced individuals. Obviously they can be the same people, but it's the skills gaps, you identify where we can bring in additional skills through the board or through the various different teams or committees. The advisory panel to any group would be the external people, like the company accountant, or if you have a company or a solicitor, and then locals that are willing to, say, service providers or consultants or whatever, that can give their time kind of for free to the organization as well. Maybe not on a regular basis, but certainly they might be able to answer a phone call or answer an email, or to give some advice or information as needed. So that's kind of your typical structure that basically runs every community volunteer organization, and runs every community and facilities and services. The size of those organizations would depend on the type of work that you're doing. We would work with a very, very big organizations, and we would work with very, very small organizations. A small organization might be resident association for a local housing estate. A very large organization might be a disability organization with 30 staff or something, but they all should be structured in the same way in terms of they're operating to some sort of a plan. They have an action plan, they're well organized, and they work efficiently and effectively. It doesn't matter how big you are, you can still work to the same sort of system. Okay. So just in terms of governance then, so obviously your board or your management committee are responsible for the strategic direction of the company or the group, and they're responsible for the governance of that group. So your volunteers doing work on the ground, helping out, doing Towns work, doing litter picking or coaching the under 13s or whatever it might be. They're not responsible for governing the organization. Okay, they're not on the board, not on the management committee. It's not their responsibility to govern the organization. It's the board or the management committee's responsibility to do that. And that board or committee would be made up of a chairperson, secretary, and treasurer. Some would have a vice chairperson, vice secretary, and vice treasurer as well. But typically you have your 3 officers, and they're ultimately responsible for the governance of the company, if it's company, or the governance of the committee, if it's just a regular unincorporated committee. So the chairperson is vital. Good chairperson is worth their weight in gold. A bad chairperson is going to cause problems. More often not intentionally. Probably actually very often that's not intentional, but a bad chairperson or a person doesn't know what they're doing, that's leading an organization, can cause an organization massive problems, both internally and externally. And again, as I said, most times they're not aware that they're causing problems, which is difficult, and people kind of find hard to kind of bring them up on it. But basically, a chairperson is responsible for leading and basically leading the organization, facilitating meetings, planning the meetings with the other officers, providing leadership within the organization and externally outside the organization, because they're normally the first point of call for stakeholders, whether it be the community, whether it be local press, local media, or funders. So they're the ones signing off on all the funding applications. They're usually the contact person for funding applications. So they need to be aware of their responsibilities and be not just aware of it, but be kind of willing to take on those responsibilities, because they are responsible ultimately. It's their responsibility as well to make sure decisions are made and that things are acted upon. So it's very important for chairpersons to have an action plan developed with their board, with their committee, and they work to that action plan to make sure things are done. So that means that every meeting is actually focused, every meeting is an action out of it, and things get done, and people move on, and they like working for the organization because things happen. An organization that has a lot of meetings but doesn't do any action or doesn't do any kind of activities really is going nowhere. They provide a focus for the body, for the organization. They act as a spokesperson of the organization. They should be able to make emergency decisions on behalf of the committee between meetings. So if a coordinator or a person whoever's in charge needs a decision made, they should be able to, consult with the chairperson. That chairperson should be able to make those decisions without having to go through a full process to do it. They sign off on and certify the annual account. So they are very much responsible for everything that happens within the organization. So they need to be aware of what's going on. Not to get involved in day-to-day kind of minutiae and get involved in kind of micromanaging, but certainly to know what's happening at a kind of at a higher level and kind of a wider level within the organization. An effective chairperson does not dominate meetings. They lead the meetings, and they encourage participation. They listen. They can direct meetings. A very good chairperson will cut through a meeting within an hour. They have a very, very clear agenda. They'll be very strict in timekeeping. They'll be very strict in terms of everything to be discussed has to have an action at the end of it. And spending 2 hours going back and forth over maybe an invoice for €40 isn't kind of what you want. You want someone who's going to drive forward and do it. So I've been in meetings where I've had chairpersons, starting when the meeting was supposed to start, if there was no one there or someone was there, and they would finish when it was supposed to finish. and everyone got a certain amount of time to speak, and everyone got a certain amount of time to get reviews passed. And meetings went very, very well. They were very effective meetings, very productive meetings. I've been at meetings in when it's completely opposite, when you have 2 cups of tea first, and then you start the meeting half an hour late. It goes on for 2.5 hours because you're discussing the weather, football, farming, everything else, and at the end of it, nothing's done. And that's fine once or twice, but if you're a volunteer, you're going to meetings on a Thursday night at 7:30, and you're there till 10 o'clock, and nothing's been done, you just won't come back to any more of them. They have to be impartial. They have to be competent in planning. No, they might be the best planners in the world, or have the greatest organizational skills. They might have other very good skills, but they need to be able to work with someone that can put a plan together for them. Again, they need to manage group conflict, or at the very least not cause conflict. And they also need to be good at building teams, because that's their job, is to lead the team out and to build that team, make sure teams want to work effectively well together. And there's some really good examples of that, and some really bad examples out there as well. Secretary is responsible for planning the meetings, drawing up the agenda, circulating the agenda, making arrangements for the meetings, doing rough minutes at the meeting, and then writing up. And this is probably the most important thing, is doing up the minutes, make sure they're circulated, and make sure that they're kept. With minutes, it's really important, if you're funded by any funding organization, whether it be Leader or Pubble or whoever it might be, right, that you keep proper minutes. And on those minutes, you need to have an agenda item where you're going to discuss the budget. And within that agenda item, which is the budget item, you need to have time put aside to discuss the grant that you received. Okay, so for example, with Pubble, if you get Pubble funding, Pubble would expect that there would have been a discussion at every meeting about the Pubble grant that was got, or the Pubble budget, and where it was at, and that has to be minuted. If you're audited by Pubble, they will ask for copies of the minutes, and they will go through those minutes and see where was the discussion happened, or where was on the agenda, where the funding or the budgets were actually recorded, the discussion that was recorded. It's really, really important to have very, very good minutes kept and keep them on file, because they will be asked, if you're being audited, they will be asked to show them and viewing. Some groups don't keep any minutes for meetings, which is an absolute disaster, because not just from the point of view audit, but if something doesn't get done and you've no recollection of who was supposed to do it, or when was decided, or if there was a dispute or something down the line around maybe a payment or a disciplinary issue or whatever it might be, if something's not minuted, it's an absolute mess then, because there's no record of it. Very, very important to keep proper records. Again, follow up on decisions. So any decision taken in meetings, that they will be followed up on. Even any correspondence. So again, correspondence from funding agencies or whoever. Make sure that all the records are kept up to date as well. So again, they will be responsible for membership records. So a lot of organizations where there might be, where it's a large organization or there's a lot of things going on, normally the secretary would work very closely with the administrator, if there's an administrator in place, or sometimes they might be the same person. Or in other cases where I've seen where there's large organizations, there might be a dual secretary role, so there might be joint secretaries where there's 2 people doing the work. So one person might have specific roles, and another person would have other roles. Because there's a lot of work involved, especially if you're drawing down funding from a load of areas. There's an awful lot of paperwork and bureaucracy and records need to be kept, and someone's got to be in control of all those. Treasurer, which is, most people think they're the most important person in the organization because they hold the money in the purse strings, but they're only as good as the people around them. Their job is to oversee the preparation of budgets, accounts, and financial statements. They will work very closely with the company accountant, where there is a company in place. They ensure the financial records are up to date. They will present regular financial reports to the board. They make sure the annual accounts are audited. They will liaise with the auditor or accountant. They will liaise with staff and volunteers on things like, say, if there's payments or anything like that. They will have an overview, I suppose, of the financial resources. So they should be able to advise the board in relation to finances, cash flow problems, overspends, underspends, that sort of stuff. So they'd work very closely as well. If there was an administrator in place, they would be working, pretty much on an ongoing basis with the administrator in terms of preparing those reports. Make sure that the financial procedures and accounting procedures are in place. They normally would be a joint secretary or signatory, on behalf of the board. So you might have treasurer and a joint treasurer, so the two of them will be signatures on it, or they'll have joint access to online banking. They should be able to advise on financial implications as well in terms of new projects. So a lot of treasurers say, like, why are we doing this? It's going to cause us problems, or it's going to add to the workload, or it's going to add to the bottom line, or it's not going to add to the bottom line. It's going to add costs onto the organization. And they might be kind of that kind of, kind of a voice of reason in the meeting when it comes to making decisions on projects. And ultimately, they're responsible to make sure that the company is financially viable and solvent. So when you look at governance, big part of governance is making sure that the company is actually is viable financially, and it's their role to make sure that happens. Did anyone have a question on that? I think there was a raised hand there. I think I saw them as well. Any question? No? Okay, perfect. Okay, so governance compliance. So with governance and with compliance, we went kind of from a situation years ago in Ireland where there was very limited regulation of the not-for-profit and charity sector. And I suppose because of that limited regulations and compliance, a lot of especially larger charities kind of went mad and did kind of silly things. Because of that, then the whole thing got tightened up. And like everything else in the country, we go from no regulations to way over the top regulation. And we have a situation now where I don't mind saying it, even though it's being recorded, where it's gone beyond reasonable the amount of regulations and compliance that groups are asked to comply with. We are seeing situations across the country at the moment where organizations are fundraising just to pay audit fees and fundraising to pay accountancy fees because their audit requirements have gone so stringent now because of the regulator that they're actually fundraising to collect money to pay an auditor and pay accountants. That's insane. They're taking money from services to basically get the paperwork done and done properly to tick boxes for the regulator. Something needs to be done about it. Obviously, I can't do anything about it, and we all can't do anything about it, but something needs to be done in terms of how far we're going with it, because it's causing major problems across the sector. And what will happen in the next 5 years, things don't change, in my opinion, because I've seen it happen already, is that no one is going to be willing to sign their name to any company documents. No one's going to become a company director, and no one's going to be volunteer administrator or secretary or treasurer or chair of any organization, because they're leaving themselves wide open. They've been asked to do things that they're on a voluntary basis that a CEO of a company would be asked to do, and no one's questioned it at all. So it's just to that kind of the back of this in terms of it's something to be aware of. I don't know what's going to happen in terms of where it's going to, but the reality at the moment is that it's kind of getting ridiculous in terms of compliance. And you're seeing this probably on a day-to-day basis yourself. So I don't need to tell you this, that you see it every time you're asked to fill in forms and do evaluations and do reports for reporting sake at this stage. I agree totally that there's a need for governance, there's a need for accountability, there's a need for transparency, but there is a point where it gets out of control. Okay, so governance is necessary because it's without governance, forget about the regulations and forget about the regulator for a second, without a properly governed group, things just go kind of all over the place. Things get out of control very, very quickly. Things might happen because of pure luck, and things might go okay purely because of luck, but chances are 9 times out of 10 things are going to start falling apart because there's no real leadership, or there's no one kind of in charge, or no one looking at long-term strategy within the organization. It's important that the organization, whether it's company, if it's company even more so, but even if it's not a company, if it's an unincorporated constituted group, you still have to operate legally and effectively. Okay, you can't just go because you're not for profit organizations. I mean, you can do stupid things and silly things and then put people's lives at risk or put people's money at risk or whatever, because you're still responsible. If you're a company, you come under the same laws as any company will in terms of directors' responsibilities, in terms of legal responsibilities. So you can't hide behind the fact that we're just volunteers here and we're just doing this kind of, for the good of the community. You still have to operate within legislation and regulations. It's really important as well from a governance perspective that the resources are managed properly, and that's key. So again, regardless of all the regulation, you as an organization must make sure that your resources are managed effectively. That's the same way as a household, that, if you've only got a certain amount of money coming in every month, that you manage that money properly so that you keep a roof over your head, you can pay the mortgage and pay for food and stuff. That you don't spend the salary on a trip to Vegas sort of thing, or go crazy every time you get paid. You've got responsibilities to manage resources in any organization. The management team or committee or board is responsible for making sure those resources are managed effectively, and that obviously they meet the purposes and objectives of the organization, that you're not doing something you shouldn't be doing. In terms of the main functions, again, it's about being clear about the purpose, the benefits, so what you're actually there for, and it's very clear in terms of what you're trying to do and who you're supposed to do it for. Again, making decisions around, again, the budgets, expenditure, financial control, employment law, salaries, all that kind of stuff. The board are responsible for all those things. So you've got an organization that's got maybe lease or owns a property, might have a commercial mortgage, might have loans out, is paying staff, has employees, has health and safety issues. They're ultimately responsible for all those things, and they're ultimately responsible with regards to they're paid or if they're volunteers. Make sure the policy and procedure up to date and they're in place, monitoring the work of managers and monitoring working staff, and then meeting legal and statutory requirements. Okay, so there's a lot there for boards to be taken on. And I suppose a lot of board members, when they start and they're asked to come on board as a volunteer on a board of a not-for-profit organization, they're thinking, that should be great, I'll get to meet people and I'll be able to do some good for the community and all this sort of stuff. And that's fantastic, but they don't realize that they're actually taking on a lot of responsibilities, and they need to be made aware of that. And the problem is, once you're making them aware of it, they're thinking, okay, why would I do this? So this is where the issue comes up in terms of, when you talk about responsibilities, there is the fear there that people will just walk away from it because they don't want those responsibilities. And that's fair enough, and I can see why people wouldn't want to get involved. However, and this is the big however, if the organization is managed properly and there's good systems and controls in place, and the organization is organized and it's got those systems, it knows what's about, it's not then a huge issue because things are done right from the start. It's where there's no systems in place, there's no management controls in place, there's no any sort of controls whatsoever, or things just kind of happening kind of ad hoc and all over the place. There's no effective kind of systems or procedures. That's where things start really going bad. So the organizations I work with that are really good at that kind of just management and structures and systems and procedures and having everything well organized, they've never had any problems because they know that everything's in place to that there shouldn't be any issues. Then you got the complete opposite then, where they are just literally like a rudderless ship on a stormy sea, and they could go anywhere. It's a bit like when you're working with a group and they've got a kind of a system that they're following and they follow it, and you work with a group that doesn't have a system, you go back to the square one with them and kind of start all over again, and literally have to kind of shut it down and rebuild it because there's so many bad habits and so many bad issues that are developed over time. So the key thing really is just kind of sticking to systems, procedures, and all that. Now, the one thing I would say to you is that there is a lot of work involved in that, but there's an awful lot of guidance and support around the two in terms of getting the systems in place. So you don't have to kind of do everything from scratch. A lot of stuff is kind of generic information, documentation that you just basically take and get and put it away and file it. So on that, if you look at, say, the operation procedures and policies that groups will have to comply with, there's constitution, so your governing kind of documents, so your memos act of association or your constitution. If you got staff, you're going to have HR policies in place. You've got volunteers, you should have volunteer policies in place. If you don't have volunteer policies in place, you need to get them in quickly. Financial policies, if you have financial policies and procedures in place, I would be very surprised, but you do need to have them in place. A reserves policy is where you have additional income or reserves at the end of the year. You have to have a policy to state what you're going to do with those reserves. Are you going to reinvest it back into the business, into the project? Are you going to be put into a sinking fund for repairs to the building or into future development of the building or purchasing a vehicle or whatever it might be. The reason why you have to have it is that the regulator will ask you why you've got a reserve and what you're going to do with the reserve. If you're going to be applying for a charitable status, you have to have a conflict of interest policy. That's basically outlining where there might be conflict there between, let's say, a board director. So if a board director wants to take on a member of their family as a staff member, they can't. Or if the board director or a member of the board owns a property and is leasing that property back to the organization, that would be conflict there. So again, the regulator is asking for this, but they have then a standard conflict of interest policy that you can do up for your organization, so you're not writing up from scratch. Equality policy, again, important to have in place. There's standard ones out there that you basically just implement for your own organization. Child protection and working with vulnerable people policies, again, standard information, documentation is there. And then your health and safety, which is basically will be unique to yourselves. So you've got to do a risk assessment of your property if you've got a building or facilities and have a safety statement. Okay, that's again a must-have. It's not a case we might have it, you have to have it. So a lot of these are must-haves from a legal point of view and a regulation point of view, and all of them are must-haves from a charity regulator's point of view. They're also must-haves for a lot of grant agencies. So the grant agencies will ask for copies of these, or not ask for the copies of them, but will ask, are they in place? And will ask you that they should be made available if they're requested. So you can't say you have them if you don't have them, then they can look up when you're in trouble. So with these, there's a lot of information on the regulator's website. So the charity regulator website, there is the link to it. If you go into for charities and you go into the guidance documents, it's basically got pretty much every kind of guidance document for all the policies and regulations you're supposed to comply with, and it would also have a number of templates and sample documents that you can use. Okay, which will save you a lot of time. So you don't need to be going off spending a fortune on consultants to do for you, because if they tell you what they want to see in the document, so just use the one they've given you. If they've given you one as a template, that's the one they want to see. So just put your name on it. Put your logo on top of the page, send it in. Obviously, adjust it to wherever it needs to be adjusted. But it's like with HSC, if you're funded under Section 39, they've got a lot of policy documents that you have to have in place, but they want you to have the ones they had. So you just literally download their policy documents and use them as your own, because that's all they accept anyway. So you're not writing brand new ones, or you're not developing brand new ones. So there's all the information you need on the policies and all the templates and all the samples are on this website. So you don't have to spend a lot of time writing new ones. Okay. Hub will have also a lot of information in terms of policy documentation and samples as well. But as I said, most of the information in the documents are standard generic information for everyone. There might be elements that will be changed based on your own organization, but you don't have to go up and spend time and money on writing new ones. Okay, so again, if you go to the regulator's website, all that information is there. Okay, what I suggest to everyone, let's check the chat. There's a question, I think. Oh, that's fine. So, like, what I would suggest for everyone is, if you're organized, and have just a simple system in place, a lot of the heartache and kind of, I suppose, stress that goes along with working in the sector is taken away. Okay, this is a very, very basic. I think I sent it out last week with the slides and with the recording. It's an Excel spreadsheet or Excel sheet that I use for the projects that I work on. So if I'm working with, say, an organization, and I might be working with them on a number of different projects or working on a number of different grants, I'll put together a project file for them or organization file for them. And I kind of recommend every organization to do it. It just basically means there's one location for everything. So you're not trying to find files and dig out paperwork here, there, and everywhere, right? So it's a simple spreadsheet with a list of tabs on the bottom. So organization details. So your name, date form, company number, tax reference number, tax access number, charter regulator number, CHY number, all the standard stuff that will go into every application for funding. So if you're going to do an application for funding, you're literally cutting and pasting from this into your application form. Okay, so you're not spending an hour writing up, and trying to find where your tax reference number is, or trying to find where tax access number is, or trying to find out where a regulator number is, or what a regulator number is, and you've none of this information at hand, and you're spending time and effort and time you probably don't have trying to find it. If it's all here, it's cut and paste, because they won't change unless you change it. So your bank account details won't change as you change your bank account. Your insurance details will change every year, but like once you get your policy, just fill in the details in the policy details, the amount, the excess, and renewal date. It'll take you a minute to do it, but it's done then for the 12 months. So you're not going to try to dig out the policy or ring the broker and look for the policy. The information about your directors, again, their name, the position on the board, and their experience and skills. The reason why that there is because, again, it's asked for in application forms. So if it's done once, it's done forevermore. As people leave or come on board, you just fill in their details there. List of documents, again, sorry. So list of documents would be, actually, I'll just go into it here. Sorry, I can stop the share. Excel here. Okay, so it's loading there now. So can you see that? Should come up now on the screen in a second, hopefully. Yep. Okay. So that's your organization details. Again, your list of content or documents. So again, I would just list all the documents that you have or that you need, and again where they're located. So I put the file location there. So what I normally would do is put a link there to the file. So when you click on the link, it brings you to the folder where it's stored. So like Constitution, Volunteer Policy, all then whatever. Some groups have a load of them, some groups have less than that. Your grants database. So again, list of all the grants that will be coming up over the course of the year. And when the deadlines are, so we looked at that last week. And then something that you should do as well is kind of keep a record of all the grants you receive. So name the grant, where it came from, who you're dealing with, what was the project for, how much was approved, when was received, was it drawn down, and did you provide any matching funding? The reason why this is important, that a lot of the grant applications you apply for will ask for details of previous grants. That's really difficult to get that information quickly when you don't have it, because you go back over your bank statements, when it was drawn down, back over your emails as to when it was received, because it asks you details of the name of the grant, the source of the grant, how much was applied for, how much was got, and the date it was received. And to get that information and to find it is difficult, because you might have got 10 grants, and trying to find out, that might take like 4 or 5 hours to get that information together. Whereas you do it every time you get a grant, fill in your template, and when you got a grant application to do, you're cutting and pasting. Okay, so what could take 4 hours will now take 20 minutes. Okay, your project action plan. So different projects, put in the project name here, who's involved in the project, what you need to do in terms of the actions. Again, so you're basically keep an eye on your actions. If you want to go really fancy, you can do a Gantt chart in terms of your project timelines and project actions. Some people use these. I use them for some projects. I don't for others. They're there anyway if you want to look at them. And your budgets, so your income and expenditure. Okay, and you can add as many tabs on there as you want. The beauty of this is that everything's in one location, so you're not trying to dig out stuff and try to find stuff and not have no idea where it is. It speeds up the whole thing, right? It's a very simple but effective way of having a system in place for managing your day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month work. And that can be added to whatever you want to add to it. It's all in one location. Okay. So what I would do for groups is I would have all their details here, like say if they got quotations for jobs, I have a list of quotations. If they've got accounts, so I put all that information there as well, or whatever's relevant to the project. So I just do it in one source and one location to get it. Okay. Okay, so that's just again, as a simple Excel spreadsheet. If you want to, you have it. You can do it old-fashioned and just basically get a binder and type it up or write it up. It doesn't matter. Once it's all in one place, that's the key thing. It's also important that people know where this is stored, because if one person on holiday, that the other people know where it is so they can access it. So share it on a shared drive somewhere. I think Serena was asking, yeah, so I'll make this available for you. So I sent out last week as a link. Sorry, as a file. I'll send it out again to read it this evening. So you have a copy of it. Or if you want, just email me. I can send you a copy of it as well. And it's only this one, my template. You can do up your own if you want to. You can make it look nicer and a bit more professional than my one if you want. Okay. So then, in terms of, I suppose, just kind of again helping you be more kind of I suppose productive and better organized and kind of running everything a bit more effectively and efficiently. It all depends on kind of the level of records you have, or sorry, level of funding you have. But it's so hard to look at things like your bookkeeping software, especially if it's treasurer or administrator, and administrators might have them already. So like I use software accounts for my own company. Xero will be fairly popular as well. Wave accounts is good because it's free and it's a good way of keeping records in terms of expenses and stuff, and it's very good for reporting. So you can actually, what I find with these accounts is that if you're updating regularly, putting stuff into them regularly, when you've got to do a grant application, you might have submit your last set of annual accounts, and they'll also ask you for your set of management accounts. So management accounts are basically your accounts up to that date. So let's say your annual accounts were made up to the end of 2022, and your 2023 accounts won't be done yet. But you'd have 12 months of money coming in, money going out. So your management accounts would reflect the last 11 months of what's happening within your organization. So if you're inputting in your income into software and your expenses, like all of your expenses that's going out, you can literally generate a set of management accounts that can do it automatically for you. So it's very good for reporting. And it's also very good for reporting for board meetings. So you're not kind of physically manually trying to put reports together. The software packages do the reporting for you. So Sort My Books is based in Killarney, so if you want to keep it local. No, they are dear. They're 40, some about 40 euros a month. They are expensive in some cases, but like Wave is free, and there's probably other free ones out there as well that I'm probably aware of, but I just don't have them off the top of my head tonight. Or simply just use Excel as a way of keeping track of money coming in, money going out. Why I like these ones, as I said, it does the reporting automatically, so you don't have to worry about it. Put a spreadsheet together for a report for a funder or for the board. You just literally generate your income and expenditure reports, your cash flow reports, your profit and loss reports, or whatever sort of reports you want to put together. And obviously it's got graphs and charts and stuff to make it look a bit nicer too. So worth looking at. Maybe do as a trial before you go off and spend money on it. If you have an accountant for your company, if you've got a company, chat with them to see what software system they use, because they'd probably want you to use the same one. It just means they can access that data from your system rather than to input everything from scratch again. So we can start chat with them on that. Just simple thing like calendar, which sounds kind of obvious, right? But very few organizations I work with have a shared calendar. It's literally, again, WhatsApp messages going on about meetings and stuff like that, and people forgetting about it. Have a Google Calendar, a shared calendar, where you can put up your days of meetings, when reports are due, when funding is due, when there's an event on, the fundraiser on, and color code them. So again, what I do my own business is I would put in whatever projects I'm working on that week, or jobs I've on that week, or training or whatever I'm on that week, and I color code them. So I have a color code for training, for mentoring, for consultancy work, and for all the other projects. So by visually looking at the calendar, I can see what areas I'm busy on, where areas I'm not that busy on. Is there any kind of gaps in the week that I've nothing on? And it's a very good way of just tracking progress and tracking your workload, and it's free, but it can be shared as well. So it's really good when you're working with a team. Other things I use, but things like that are free in most cases. So Canva. So if you're doing, like, say, flyers or templates for PowerPoint presentations or anything like that, use Canva. It's a design site. Use cloud storage. So use like Google Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox. Just means that, again, if someone's got all their details on a USB stick and they lose it, then the organization's lost all this data. If someone's away on holidays and you don't have access to their laptop or their password, again, it's just have it stored somewhere on Drive where people can access it. Some people use project management tools. I don't. I just don't really like using kind of fancy IT systems that you learn how to use them. But again, there's Trello is one example. There's like thousands of them out there. You're managing projects. Some of you might be doing email marketing, like so you might have e-newsletters going out to your community or out to the groups. Again, you can use MailChimp, which again is free for the most part, I think. Or you can use other like different systems. But again, if you're communicating a lot with your community, information, whatever it might be, a lot of groups are using this WhatsApp and stuff like that, or a lot of clubs are using the new one called Clubs app, to get the message out to their players and coaches and parents and stuff. This is kind of three beyond the slides anyway. There's just 3 websites that have reviews of all the kind of productivity apps that you can use. Again, they're a lot more very business focused, but it's the same thing for managing a business project and managing a community project. I would argue that managing a community project is more difficult because there's more moving parts to it. So if we look at them and see, look, if you're interested in using any of them, especially the free ones, it might save you a bit of time and make it a bit more effective and efficient. Okay, any questions on that before we move on to the revenue side of it? No? Is there something chat here? Check the chat. No. Okay, and read a question there in relation to de minimis state aid. Okay. Yeah, so just on that, so the questioner was in relation to de minimis state aid. So de minimis state aid is basically where it's a European condition or regulation, I suppose, where it's kind of it's a kind of a competition kind of clause as such. Sorry, Marie, yes, you want to come there?
Yeah, I was just going to come in after you'd explained it, to say I wonder in that spreadsheet where you conclude the information about the grants, whether you might put a column in for which ones classify as de minimis state aid, because I know that comes up as question. How much have you already, are you within the limit that you're allowed for de minimis state aid?
So this, I think it's 250,000 euros or 200,000 euros, 250. That you're,
it's around that,
that you can only get over a 3-year period, which is not, okay, it's a lot of money, but if you're, some organizations might be drawn down, more than that over a 3-year period. It is certain state aid is not subject to de minimis funding. It all depends on really the type of projects you're doing and the type of funding you get. So there's a lot of I suppose exemptions from the de minimis funding. What I would suggest, and I might put a link into it on the email going out. There's a link there. There's information online as to what would be considered to be exempt from it. And primarily, if you're not kind of operating in any sort of commercial kind of type project or enterprise type project, pretty much all of this kind of is exempt. But there is very clear rules and regulations around it. Just if you are applying for leader funding, for example, next year to South Korea Development Partnership or Northeast West Korea Development, it'd be worth asking them in relation to the project and the funding, would it come under de minimis state aid? Because it does, as you're saying, Emery, you need to kind of mark that down on that, somewhere that this is 100,000 euros. This would impact us down the line in terms of de minimis funding. But I've seen some groups, I'm not recommending it, would set up separate kind of organizations or separate companies trying to get around that. But that would be kind of the nuclear option really with this. I would send a link onto it because it's kind of complex area, but I've seen a link on which gives a kind of breakdown of the areas that wouldn't be subject to de minimis, if that's okay.
Great, thanks, Tom.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions before we move on to the fun stuff? No? Okay, perfect. Okay, so the key thing, I suppose, the word here is the word here is sustainable, right? Or the word is sustainable. So I've got just a screen, kind of a photo montage there of what we've all been involved in at some stage, whether it be car washes or backpacking or fun runs or selling ads and race cards or food barbecue days or whatever. We've all been there, either being part of them or sponsored them or volunteered at them, and nothing wrong with them. They're the mainstay of raising money for pretty much every organization that's working on a voluntary basis across the country and beyond. The problem is if you're constantly relying on doing this over and over and over and over and over again, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable for two reasons. One, because people just get fed up with it in terms of they're getting sick of fundraising. And secondly, it's not sustainable because the community, in a lot of cases, in a lot of your cases, will be small areas, small rural areas. It's the same people that are asked to put a hand in their pocket every time. And like, you go to checkout and you're going, oh, geez, I have to money now to this group because their son knows my son, or, and you're just giving money to everyone because you feel that you kind of have to. Not some people don't, but a lot of people do, and a lot of people feel pressurized into doing it as well. So it's got to the point where people are just kind of like, I know at one stage there, that was before COVID. I remember one month, and I'm out in Causeway. I bought 3 tickets for a night of the dogs in Tralee Racetrack. I don't go to Tralee Racetrack very often. If I went every time I bought a ticket, I'd be probably going there every second week. Because people come to you can't really say no to them. But you can, but I just find it hard to say no to them because I'm involved in the sector and I just know how much pain they have to go through to get the money, so I just give it to them anyway. But it just gets it's not sustainable because you come back at the same time to the same people over and over and over again. And the other groups in the area are doing the same thing. So that's why it's not sustainable. So you have to look at, it's needed, but it's not the only way of getting money in. So the key thing really, when you look at fundraising or looking at funding, is that you have to look at your business or your business of your organization is a not-for-profit organization, okay? But it's also a not-for-loss organization. So this is what I constantly say to my groups. Just because you're not-for-profit doesn't mean that you don't have to make a profit. In fact, you should be trying to make a profit. You should try to generate a reserve every year because you don't know what's going to happen next year. You might have got cut in funding. Costs might go through the roof, or the roof might come in, or whatever it might be. And you've no money in the account because you're just literally working on a break-even basis. That's not sustainable. That's not viable. So you have to try to make a reserve. So you have to make a profit, even though you're not for profit. The reserve needs to be allocated somewhere. So that would be allocated into running costs for maybe 2 months, depending on how big it is. Or it might be put into sinking fund for building repairs, or it might be put in for a fund to provide matching funding for a project you're going to develop in the next 12 months. So for example, you're putting on an extension to your building, it's going to cost you €500,000 and you need to come up with 10% matching funding or 25% matching funding. The reserve is being put aside to provide that matching funds. That's all fantastic. There's no issue with that. No one's going to complain about it. If you don't have a policy for it though, you will run into issues with the regulator and with revenue as well. Okay. Cost analysis, before you do any sort of planning around your fundraising, you need to know what you're spending every year. Okay, which kind of sounds like common sense, but most organizations have no idea because they don't keep proper records. They just basically sometimes in a paper and off they go. So look at your costs. If there's costs being incurred that are not really generating any revenue or generating any kind of value to your project, why are you spending money on it? If it's not going to, if a project doesn't benefit your organization, if it's not kind of meeting the kind of aims of your organization, again, I'd question why you're doing it and why you're spending money on it. If something's not really needed, so again, I've arguments a lot with groups I work with because they say, Tom, we need to do X, Y, or Z. And I say, why do you need to do that? It's going to cost you a lot of money and you get no value out of it. And, you're paying it off for more and, you probably don't need it. And they'll argue their points, and I'll argue my point back, and very often they win because they're making a decision on it anyway. But there's an awful lot of wasted money out there. There's an awful lot of money being spent on stuff that's not required. And a lot of projects they're just, get funded initially because there's grant there, and then afterwards they just become another cost item that they can't afford. So it's like, it's like, buying something that you don't need and you're paying it off forevermore, If additional one-off funding leads to additional administration costs, which they will do, I was at a meeting yesterday with a group in Tralee, and their administrator is like going, if I see another grant coming in, I'm going to go nuts because every time a grant comes in, there's another layer of bureaucracy, another layer of paperwork to be done, and there's no additional cost for that administrator. There's no extra pay for that person. So they're now being subsidized through their core funding to do paperwork for another fund that you're not getting paid for. That doesn't make sense, at all. It might in some cases, but when you're taking on additional workload and the value of the grant you're getting is low, and sometimes the workload is the same for a large grant as a small grant, I'd often look at questioning why you applied for it in the first place. Can any of the costs that you have be covered by in-kind support or voluntary support? Can you avoid the cost if all possible? Because what you're trying to do is keep your organization running as cheaply and as effectively without cutting to any corners as possible. Okay. So for example, we would work with groups who have heating systems that are outdated. They put on the heating system maybe 4 hours before meeting just so the room is warm when you get there because the building's so cold. That's waste of money. It's a waste of time. That's a waste of, it's a complete waste of money. We've got groups who don't have central lights in their buildings. So when someone does desktop light, the light's on maybe for 2 days. I was at one location one night, came back from an airport very, very early in the morning. We passed a building that we do some work for, community hall. It's about maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, and the lights were all on the hall. And next morning, so probably doing the hall till 3 o'clock in the morning. They were what? And the lights had been left on that night at 10 o'clock, and they were on until maybe 12 o'clock the following day. Because there's no controls, nothing in place. So a lot of money wasted as well. Across sectors. So look where you spend the money and see where you cut your costs as much as you possibly can, without cutting corners, obviously. Simple budget. Again, look at your bottom line. Whereas when you're going out, what months are going to be heavy, what months are going to be light, when's our loans up, when's our insurance repayments due, when is our accountancy fees due in, how often are like heat bills come in, where they got up and much, obviously they have. Any kind of cost that you have, project what they're going to be for the next 12 months. Look at your previous accounts and say, okay, what were they last year and what do we expect them to go up by this year? So we're at the end of the year now, you're looking at budgeting for 2024. Put a simple cash flow together for the next 12 months and kind of estimate what your costs are going to be over the next 12 months. Be very clear in terms of, and mark with a highlighter or something, the months where there's a big payment due to out. So let's say you've got to pay your accountant €5,000 in October or November. That's €5,000 you're going to have in the account. Would it be better paying that accountant over 12 months? So you're not basically killing your cash flow in 1 month in the year. Would it be better to look at, if you're purchasing equipment, and you're paying for it up front with money out of your account, would you better off maybe leasing that equipment over a couple of years? So you're paying it off per month rather than taking it out on the go. Is there ways you can shop around for better value on energy, on phone, on broadband, on your insurance? You get the best possible deals. Insurance is an interesting one. A lot of people just basically go with the same broker year after year because it's handy and it's easy, and just the renewal notice comes in by email. We bother looking around, so they say, yeah, we'll go with that again next year, everything's fine. You could save yourself a fortune on insurance by shopping around. The days of probably saving a fortune on energy costs are probably gone because they're very, very few more often the discounts now by switching. And I don't know where it's going to go to. So we're looking at probably investing in energy upgrades and insulation to keep costs down rather than trying to get to negotiate on better bills. So once you know what your expenses are for the next 12 months or 2024, what your outgoings are every month, you then need to identify where that money is going to come from every month on the top parts of the spreadsheet here. Okay, so really where you're looking at in terms of what can we bring in fees, what can we bring in through fundraising, what can we bring in through sponsors, and what can we bring in through grant aid. Okay, forget about grant aid because I mean it's too risky, it's too uncertain. If you're literally hoping to get a grant in, and a grant won't cover your operation costs anyway, so it's a waste. There's no point in looking at it from an operational perspective. But even if there was grants for operational things, there's no guarantee that you're going to know when they're going to be announced or when they're going to be decided upon. So you can't really bet on it, you can't really back in it. You need to make sure there's kind of more sustainable options up there where there's money coming in regularly. For example, if you were to pay the accountant €5,000 in November, you're not going to raise €5,000 in 1 month. So what will end up happening is a director, which happens the whole time, a director will give a loan to the company for €5,000 to pay the accountant. Now you're fundraising pay back to the director. And then this question is asked about why is the director getting €5,000 because no one knows to get €5,000 for insurance. So now we think the director is getting paid out of the organization. It's a mess. So have some sort of a system in place where you have regular income coming in that will cover the outgoings. Same as your house, same as your business if you were in business. Money in, money out. If you got a mortgage payment every month, you got to have money in the account to pay for it. You're not going to do a flag day the day before to pay for it. So, with an organization, community volunteer organization, knowing your costs every year, because you know them from previous years, you need to know what is coming every month. So I'm sure you know is how you bring that money in every month, or show you how you can possibly bring it in rather than guaranteeing it. So source of funding. You can charge money for fees. There's nothing saying you can't charge for fees. There's no one saying anywhere that you cannot, as an organization, charge something. You can charge for whatever you want to charge for. Some of you don't, because you're providing services for free. Others are charging, below commercial rates because, the people that you're providing service for can't afford it, but they're giving you a donation, or they're giving something as a kind of contribution, or you're charging the minimum. But you have maybe others in are able to pay kind of a higher amount, and they're willing to pay it, and they do pay it. This person there. Sorry, Joan, question there in terms of does Kerry County Council Community Activities Fund does allow for operating costs? I'm not sure, Joan, in terms of does the Community Activities Fund cover operational costs? It might. I can't say yes for definite. I can find out for you, and again we can pull up on the email. Normally though, grants don't cover operational, and the reason why grants don't cover operational costs, and people give out about it, is that if you're relying on grants to cover your operational costs, that's not sustainable, right? That's like putting the band-aid over the cut, and then when the band-aid falls off, you're looking for another band-aid to put back over it again. You run out of band-aids eventually, so you've got to look at grant aid. Normally doesn't allow you for operational costs. Operational costs are costs that are regular ongoing costs. So if they give it to you once, you're going to be reliant on it, right? So you become kind of addicted to the grant then, because you've got the grant coming in to cover your costs. So you don't bother to fundraise because you don't need to. That's why most grants, unless you core fund it, won't cover operational. But I can check with the activities fund. Sorry, question. They do cover it. Sorry, John. Sorry about that. Okay, do they? Okay, perfect. Brilliant. Okay. The fee income can be for services, can be for products. So look at all the charity shops that are out there. Benson's, for example, all over the country. Some very successful charity shops in Tralee that are generating a lot of money, and that's covering the running costs of their organization. You can rent facilities, rent out your halls, your meeting rooms, etc. You get a membership. So Club, for example, would their fee income would come through membership and subscriptions and registrations of the players and members. You've got one-off grants and core grants. So one-off grants, like the activities fund does cover operation costs, and then core grants. So if you're Section 38, Section 39, TUSLA funded, CSP funded projects, they're all core funding you get for staffing costs. But again, they'll be for very specific types of projects. You've got fundraising and online fundraising, which is my focus of this evening. Sponsors and partners. Sponsors normally be one-off kind of stuff. They'll get involved to sponsor maybe an event or something, which is not really much good to you long term. Partners then would be more important, because they would partner with an organization where they provide maybe annual funding for maybe 3 years, and it normally goes into just kind of the pot of funds to cover. Might be for specific costs, or it might be for general costs. But that's the key, is to bring in your partners if you possibly can. And that's what we're trying to focus on with our organizations, is to identify corporate partners that will come on board for 3 years, that would give money, the same amount of money for 3 years. Donors, philanthropy, so your JP McManus Foundation, Tomar Trust, and any other kind of organizations or philanthropy that give donations to community voluntary sector. Social loans, which would be for bridging finance or for long-term loans. Commercial loans, I wouldn't be going near if I were you, if you're a company, because you're going to sign directors' guarantees, which you shouldn't be doing, but you might be forced into doing it. So look for Concrete or Community Finance Ireland to back your projects. And then in-kind contributions like labour, materials, equipment, things like that. So they're a source of funds. And normally it's kind of a cocktail of those funds that people can rely on, and there's pressure then to bring in that money every year, because they do kind of ad hoc stuff, and it's not very planned, and it's very reactionary. So it's like, our insurance is up, we better get money in, or the account has to be paid, or the roof is leaking, or this kind of stuff. That's burnout material right there, because it's not planned, it's not done properly, it's not done effectively, and it's just kind of every year is stressed out because you're worried about some unknown cost coming in that's going to bring you into a negative in the bank. So fundraising, loads of methods, and it's getting more and more creative because it's getting more and more competitive. Look at the return for what's involved, right? So I insist, if anyone knows me or been on previous courses, they're sick of hearing me saying this. Forget about the small fundraisers unless you want to get publicity, okay? So if you want to get publicity and want to get your name out there and brand out there, small fundraisers, fantastic. They work for that purpose to get your name out there. People see you on the street, they see you in the Tesco's backpacking, they see your logos, they see what you're about. They might ask some questions, you might give out some flyers, and that's fantastic. But as a way of making money, they're an absolute waste of time because you won't bring in a lot of money from a small fundraiser. A couple €100. If your budget is €100,000 and you're getting €1,000 from a flag day, that's a drop in the ocean what you need. You might spend a day doing flag day, maybe 2 days organizing it, and it's 2 days of your time gone for €1,000, and when you need €100,000. Look at the larger events. Look at the one-off annual events, your race nights, golf classics, your functions, your socials, your festivals, that kind of stuff, right? What we're trying to get our organizations to do is to do an event every year that would be the backing of the community. So it's a social community type event, like the community village festival or the village fairs that were on years ago, where communities got together normally at the end of a harvest, and they had a bit of fun, and it was like different events on, things like that, and it was kind of like a weekend of fun and activity for the community after a hard season. And that's they're starting to come back in again. Now they're kind of being taken over by kind of larger kind of music festivals and stuff like that, but they're still there. They're a really good way of fundraising in a local level because everyone knows every year, same time they're going to be on. So everyone knows same time every year they're going to be looking for sponsors to get involved. Your ticketing events where people are paying for tickets to get into events, whether it be music or whatever it might be. You might have kids activities, fun activities, sports activities, a whole range of stuff going on, right? They bring in a lot of money. There's one above in Hill there in Laois that I'm aware of called the Folly, they call it. And it's started a couple of years back before COVID to raise money for the local community council. And they raise about €50,000 profit every year from that. It's a small village, Hill is not a big area, and people know it's on every year, and it's got very, very popular. In Durrow, in near just up the road from Hill, they have an annual scarecrow festival to raise money for the local community, and they raise a load of money out of that. That's an annual event. It's like the Rose of Tralee for Durrow, basically. It's this big event every year that they organise, and that money goes back into the community events. But it's an annual social thing that people get involved in because it's once a year. Like you're talking about, maybe up to €100,000 to get from that. So running small events are fine from a marketing point of view, but if you're trying to make money out of them, you will literally run out of volunteers to get involved every year on because they get sick of it. And people don't want to be backpacking and outside church gates and knocking on people's doors in the middle of winter looking for money for this, that, and the other. There's easier ways of doing it. Not easier. There's a lot of work involved in these, but they're easier from the point of view that you're not kind of knocking door to door and cold calling the whole time. So the steps to do a good fundraiser, have a good fundraising team, and they're dedicated. The word dedicated there is vital. Having someone saying, "Oh yeah, I'll get help out there. There's no problem. Yeah, no problem. You can count on me," and then they're nowhere to be seen when work needs to be done. They're no good to you. 5 people that will do work are better than 50 people who won't do work. Trust me. So dedicated team that are willing to give their time to us. Look at your previous fundraising, see where you went wrong, see what worked, what didn't work. If it didn't work last year, it won't work this year. Okay, if people don't back us, there's no reason why they'll back next time around. Set a target, okay, and be realistic with the target. Don't set too high target and don't set too low target. Be realistic. Normally, it's based on your cost analysis. So if you're looking at let's say one club we work with, their loan repayments every year are about €35,000. So they run a golf classic, and their target income from that golf classic is €35,000. Their goal is to hit 35,000. Golf classic then pays for the loan repayments for the entire year. They're not then using other funds that they have to subsidize the loan repayments. Okay, and that was basically the reason why the club First Aid decided to borrow the money for the project, because they committed, the team that and I was part of that team that said, look, we do this, committed to actually raising that money every year. And they will. They will no problem doing it every year. But it's got a very clear role, very clear focus, and a very clear target. Look at the ask. Again, people. This what kind of wrecks my head, where people do fundraisers, but the people you're asking money, asking for money from, don't really know what you're doing to money, right? So, we're doing a fundraiser there for the local school. Oh, fantastic. But what for? Like, what, is it for an astroturf pitch? Is it for books? Is it for a shelter? Is it for car parking? Is it for what is it for? Be more clear, be more specific. Club saying, we're doing a fundraiser for the local club. We want to build dressing rooms. Fantastic. So it's very clear in terms of what they're asking for. So if someone comes up the door to me and says, Tom, can you buy a ticket for the race night, or can you sponsor an ad in the race card, because we're building dressing rooms because we've got loads of girls playing the football now, camogie, and we've only got 2 dressing rooms and we want to build dressing rooms. So girls have a place to we have 4 dressing rooms, boys and girls dressing rooms, because we want to encourage more to get involved. Absolutely 100% I get involved in it. If someone says to me, Tom, can you support the local club? And I have no idea for what. I'm not that I wouldn't do it, but I'm thinking, okay, well, what's it for? Where is it going to? How it's going to be communicated. So how do you actually communicate what you're looking for to the community? Just simply tell them what it is. Put up a big billboard outside the school, or outside the GA pitch, or outside the soccer pitch, or outside your community hall, or wherever it is, and say, a picture of what you want to build, or a picture of what you want to do, and say, help us build this. Very simple. Because, okay, that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing with the money. Now we know what's going on. That'd be great to have. Sure, you back that completely. I suppose saying, like, we bought a field and there's a field. Give some money for it. Sure, why what's going to be in the field? Every time I drive past, there's cows in there. I'm not going to give you, money for nothing, because I don't know what's happening there. Put a billboard on the ditch and say, in 2 years' time, we'll do this if we can raise the money for it. Now I know what the money's for. So just communicate it. This doesn't have to be overly complicated. Build a network of contacts. So first thing that we do on our fundraising team for the club is we build a long list of who's in the club that's got businesses, who in the club are in business, who in the club are in a senior management or CEO position in their companies, and we make a list of those first. So in other words, we look at all the parents and we look at people that have access to money or access to contacts. And then we target them and we say, okay, can you support this? But could you also ask maybe your associates or your suppliers or or even your staff, would they get behind it as well? Okay, so we start building what's called the hub and spoke model. Hub is the kind of the core people in the middle, and then the spokes are all the networks that they're linked to. We identify any events or activities you want to run. So that could be sports event, it could be fashion event, it could be social event, or whatever. You pick the activity that would work best for you. What we tend to do is look at what's been successful elsewhere around the country, not so much locally, because it's been tried. If it's done locally, you're just kind of copying them. But I say, Donegal somewhere, it's really kind of clever, innovative fundraiser, copy it. Some people go to marketing companies, like event management companies, to plan the events for them. That's fine, but they'll take probably around 10 grand off the overall money raised. And to be honest, you can probably do this yourselves. All they do is add a bit of kind of professionalism to it, add a bit of marketing clout to it. But as it worth 10,000 euros, there's probably someone locally that could do a lot of that kind of for you for a fraction of the cost, or maybe on a pro bono basis, or you could do it yourselves. So they are good, and I'm not knocking them at all, but question: do we need to spend 10 grand on something, or 5 grand, or whatever they would charge? So again, your team is your core people here, and they're the hub, and then you're looking at, okay, who are the spokes in terms of within the organization we need to go to, and then who are they linked to that we can bring in. So you're basically multiplying the numbers constantly, right? And I'm going to show an example of that in a second, actually, that really will show you how this can be done fairly effectively and efficiently with not that many number of people. Before I do that, I want to just talk to you about very briefly on tax refund donations. So if you are doing a fundraiser, look at applying to revenue to be an approved body to get tax refund donations. So the church does a lot, and a lot of sports clubs do it. So it's basically where you have a situation where if you get 250 euros, at least a minimum 250 euros in a year from a PAYE worker, you can then claim a tax back on the tax they paid, that 250 euros. So what that basically means is this: that if someone gives you 250 euros, and whether it be in one payment or over 12-month payments, you get a form from them, it's a revenue form that you complete. They give you permission to claim the relief on that donation. Now, the drawback for them is that they can't claim relief on it themselves afterwards. So they can't include it as a relief, but you can. And the rate that the relief is, the tax rate that they allow you is 31%. So I'll show an example of that in a second. So where this works well is that you can now start using that scheme as a way of generating money over a 12-month period, okay? So the way you do it is you basically try to identify your network. So you try to basically get your team of people to identify people within their network that, whether it be private, in their family or colleague or their professional colleagues or social colleagues, friends that they know, people in the gym they know, or people they know in the club or whatever. Because if you go after people that you know, right? So peer-to-peer fundraising. So peer-to-peer is basically asking people you know for money. So let's say you get the stats that are out there that 1 in 4 emails that are sent out to peer-to-peer as fundraisers. So if a friend sends you an email, 1 in 4 of those emails it results in some sort of donation, whereas 1 in 1,250 emails that goes out to just people at random, generally like cold call, cold emails, only 1 in 1,250 get responded to or get a donation. So that's a massive difference. So basically, if I get an email from a buddy of mine saying, Tom, look, we're doing a fundraiser there for our local school. My kids are going there, they love it, but the school's falling apart. We could help out. I might or mightn't, but chances are I probably will. So if we've got to say a WhatsApp group of say 7 or 8 of us, and that goes out to the WhatsApp group, one might come back and say, oh yeah, I'll give something there. The other 7 will probably give something as well because they're kind of sharing into it. So it's basically peer-to-peer fundraising. And this is the key to us, right? Because this stops you from going around door to door, knocking, cold calling randomly people's houses in the winter and annoying them and putting yourself at risk as well. But it's really important because the chance of someone that you don't know giving you money is very, very slim. The chance of someone that you know giving you money is higher. Okay, so this is what we do. We call it the power of 10. So the power of 10 is basically you got 10 people on a team. So you pick 10 people for your team. 10 people on your committee, 10 people in your club, 10 people in your organization, okay, that are willing to do it, not being coerced into doing it, they're willing to do it. They've got a network of, right, so each of those 10 people look for 10 people. Okay, so they're going to identify 10 people within their network, that could be friends, colleagues, family members, whoever it might be. So that's their 10, right? So each of these 10 finds 10 people, that's 100 people. Okay, that 100 people, you ask them to give by direct debit, €21 a month, okay? So they're not asked for €250 up front, they're asked for €21 per month. That means they're giving €252 per annum. So they do up a direct debit from their account to the club's account or the organization's account for €21 a month. So it's not a massive expense for most people every month. And you won't be identifying people who won't be able to afford it, you can identify people who can't afford it, and you ask them, okay? So that 10 people, identify 10 people who know can give €21 a month, and they say, okay, can you do this for direct debit for 12 months? We're not going to ask you up front, just to go over 12 months. The reason why over 12 months is important. So let's say 100 people signed up. So I find 10 people and the other 10 find 10 people. That's 100 people. So over the course of a year, over the course of a month, I will get €2,100 into the account from that 100 people, because they're all donating €21 a month by direct debit. Annually, that works out €25,200. Okay, if they're all willing to give me permission to get tax relief, if my organization is approved for tax relief on donations, if they give me permission to get tax relief on donation, and they have to fill in a form with their PPS details, etc. At the end of the year, I submit all those forms to revenue. So 100 forms go to revenue. Okay, revenue will allow me to claim tax back at 31%. Which is roughly on a donation of €2,100 would be €943 is what is being paid in tax out of that. Okay, that €943 is added to my €2,100. So I'm getting €25,200 from the donors, let's say, and in revenue give me another top up of 9,430 on top of that. So I'm actually getting €34,630 every year through the scheme. Okay. So what we do is then we go back to them and say, well, look, you've already signed up to the direct debit scheme. Can you roll over for another year? There might, some mightn't. So let's say 20 of them drop out of it. You then the space to replace. So the 10 people now find 2 more people to sign up to replace that 20. Okay. And you keep it, you can have this up to 200 people if you want to, but then it also gets kind of more difficult. But the key thing is by getting it by direct debit every month, you now can go to the bank and say, look, we got a repayment capacity here for a loan. We got €2,100 coming in every month, guaranteed every month, but not guaranteed because it might cancel it, but it should come in pretty much every month. So where you might think it's going to be impossible to raise that sort of money, trying to find 10 people in your network that's going to give, €21 a month for most, because you're analyzing who we're going to go after, would potentially be able to do that. Okay, so for example, we would go to a company and we would say to them, look, can you get your employees to sign up to this? And the employees get €21 a month, or at least 10 of those employees will get €21 a month. You have to give something back, obviously, in terms of, obviously value back to them in some sort of way or whatever it might be. But the key thing is that you do it on a team basis. So you're not asking one person to go out and raise loads of money. You're asking 10 people to not raise any money. Really, these 10 people raise the money for you. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So it's power 10, you can do the power 20 if you want to go mad. Make it more difficult for yourselves, but keep it simple at start. You can always expand it. If it's working easy for you, just basically add a few more to it. Doesn't stop you from getting 10 more on if you want to. So if every one of these 10 got 10 in initially, and then in 6 months' time got another 10 in, now you're doubling that. Now you're looking at 68,000 roughly a year, which is a lot of money to be raising. That basically will eliminate all your fundraising that you have to do outside that because you have the money coming in anyway. Okay, so fundraising, again, these are typical stuff like your Disney trip. This was Park of Sea, what they did one for the Golf Classic. They did one for we did one for the win a trip to Disney or win a voucher or trip to Disney. Kerry GA, thing of GA, loads GA clubs do win a house. Arc in Arfurt recreational park or recreational centre. My first community council, they did a win a house competition. They raised, I think it was nearly €1 million they raised over it. This was 10 years in Croker, was in St. Simmons, and Mount Cole did this one. Again, they used I think it was a Palace Marketing. I think the park used Palace Marketing as well for their ones. But again, it's their standard ones. These ones in are kind of like your kind of more of your viral type stuff. So the Shave or Die campaign that AFM run for cancer support, very successful campaign. They started years ago, where people just basically donate for people who are either shaving their hair or dyeing their hair for the purpose. So that's really where you have an organization leading out in it and being kind of the influencer. And then people, getting involved, whether it be through their businesses or through their schools or through just themselves individually. So Movember now is one at the moment. You see a lot of people with beards and moustaches and stuff. Some looking pretty bad. So I know our accountants there, CSG and Tralee, they're doing a fundraiser, and they're doing Movember. So it's 10 of their staff are letting their beards grow for the month to raise money. So it's a very good way of getting companies involved too, from a marketing point of view. There's a bit of a marketing value in it, and each of those individuals then that are growing a beard or moustache, whatever, they'll raise money individually then, and that goes into a pot. Sometimes then what companies will do is they'll match that. So say 10 of their employees are doing a fundraiser, the companies will match it, and there's some serious marketing value there from that because you get a bit of PR almost, social media coverage on it as well. This is the Ice Bucket Challenge that you were probably familiar with years ago. That was stuff for motor neuron disease, a charity organization over in the States. They started off, they raised €220 million in 1 year, because celebrities, sports people, politicians, presidents, they all got involved in it, and people turned a bucket of ice over their head, and they basically raised money for that. Really, really clever. A group we're working on at the moment, Rob and Kilmeady in West Limerick. They did an ice bat challenge, kind of similar take on it. They purchased a field in the community, the village, last year, I think it was, and they're currently now we're actually in planning on what they're looking to do with the field in terms of what facilities to put in there. So they put in a recreational park and a wellness park in there. They raised €50,000 last year, or this year, sorry, with the ice bat challenge. So basically, 25 people, I think it was, committed to raising €2,000 if they sat in an ice bath for a couple of minutes. It's a really clever one, because what you find if you take this to a level of, say, a company level, or to a level with let's say a school, for example, right? So imagine if school's trying to raise money, and the school did a thing where you basically, all the teachers had to spend a minute inside an ice bath. Guaranteed, guaranteed the kids will raise money to see that happening, just for the crack of it. A company the same way was, you go say, okay, put your CEO in an ice bath for 3 minutes and raise money that way. So there's a bit of fun with it. There's like, they had a big kind of whole social event and a big kind of fun day above in Kilmedia over, but you raised €50,000. So 25 people raised €50,000. Can you imagine the amount of backpacking you'd have to do, the amount of cake you had to sell, the amount of fashion shows, the amount of flag days, the amount of standing outside churches on a wet, cold Sunday morning, collecting money, getting a few euros fired into a bucket, you have to do to raise that sort of money. And there's no real massive marketing value or kind of the community value in that. It's a person lonely going out, basically with a bucket collecting money. Whereas this, you can have a bit of crack with it, a bit of fun with it, and you'll raise money as well. But that's 25 people only raising €2,000. If they double that and got 50 people who next year, that's €100,000. Like that's serious amount of fundraising, And if everyone knew that this, certain time of the year, the ice bath challenge was happening, you just basically gear up to it and you get ready for it, and then you could actually get sponsors. So a sponsor could sponsor every ice bath. So let's say the person raises €1,000, and then the company sponsors that ice bath with their branding on it for their €1,000. Now you've got, like, 50 grand for very, not, I'll say little work, but not a huge amount of work compared to what you're doing elsewhere. So it's just about being clever and seeing how can make this a bit of a fun event, get a bit of kind of viral activity online about it, have maybe other events around it, because you could charge see all these guys in the background here, you could charge them all €5 to watch it. This is when people are, that's sort of $5 grand. Sell them stuff there, like have a stall with coffees and cakes and whatever it might be, make another couple of €1,000. Like, so you can do what you want with these things, really. Just being innovative. So isn't that like a lot better than being in Tesco and like 40 people, rotated to stand in Tesco for a day doing backpacking or Lidl or Aldi or wherever, or just going door to door in the night, collecting money off people at door, in around the area. Have something that's a bit of fun, that's going to generate a bit of novelty, get people behind it. Online fundraising is a new opportunity. It happened during COVID. People couldn't go out and fundraise in their typical ways, and they went online to fundraise. And what they found was that when they went online, they actually got to a wider audience in their local village or community or parish because they were online. So their network was now the world, basically, and they could go after anyone they wanted to go after. It is a new revenue stream. It's not a new revenue stream. It's been there since websites were invented, but it's a newish one for the sector, because a lot of people are now looking at how they can generate their revenue online through fundraising. You have a much wider audience. You also have access to the diaspora. Diaspora people that left the village, parish, town, and are now living abroad, or not living abroad, possibly living up in Dublin, or living in Cork, or living in Limerick. It doesn't matter, once they're gone out of the area. They're no good to you when you're doing your backpacking in Tesco, because it's not going to fly over from Australia to put €1 into the bucket, because they're not there. So you miss out on all the people who want to donate but can't donate because they're not actually physically present when you're doing the collections. Okay, by doing it online, they can contribute anywhere they want with their credit card. Okay, so they can donate wherever they are, and that's where you target them. And when people move abroad, they tend to be more kind of patriotic to their country and county than they are when they're here. So tap into that. There's a lot of successful people as well in the UK, in the States, and all over the world that are from Kerry and from beyond. Target them, get them to maybe run a fundraiser for you as well. Again, online. Because all you need to do is send the link onto their friends, or onto their WhatsApp groups, or onto their Facebook, friends or whatever, or their network that they're on with. Do creative campaigns. So creative campaigns work well online because you can do video, photos, you can use social media. Online is way better from a transparency point of view because there's no one handling money. So the person is collecting outside the church and getting all the euros and the €5 notes. There's no question where that money is going to, because there's no one handling money, right? So it's easy also administrative, because you can see what money came in and where it came in from through your Stripe or PayPal or whatever. There'll be reports you can download. But the key thing is there's no one responsible, so no one can question anyone stealing money or taking money, because it's not no one's handling coins. It's all done electronically into your bank account. Way more transparent, way easier to administer as well. And it's more cost effective, because you're not on the ground walking. You're not spending loads of time in this. You're doing it online. You know, there's no printing costs involved or anything like that. There's no venue hire involved or anything because it's done as an online fundraiser. Way less volunteer hours involved. Because again, you're not doing door to door, you're not going around the place, you're not spending 10 hours backpacking or whatever. If you want to develop your own website, you can for this. And that's really, you know, it's important because I feel that you can, if you don't have your own site, you can only, you're limited to what you can give in terms of information by using third party kind of fundraisers like GoFundMe or whatever. You know, you can a certain amount of information there, but if you get your own website, you can engage more with your not your customers, your community, because you can give information more about what's happening in the project. You can give them updates. You can do kind of give photos of the building works going on or whatever it might be, or do kind of videos or overheads or drone videos or whatever. So you can keep them engaged and keep them along going with you. You know, so you got full control of your content, better options for marketing. You can provide more information to potential donors, so you can provide information about the finance or the project or the plans or whatever. You can put all up online. It promotes the work you do, so you can say, look, click here and see what we do and the work we do and who benefits from it. You can build a database of contacts, so you can get people to sign up to the newsletter. So you sign up on a contact page, now you've got their contact details, so you can actually keep them informed. You can tap them as well for maybe fundraisers online. You can provide a notice board for information and events. It's a communication tool as well, so handy when you're looking for funding. You can say to your stakeholder or your funding organization, check out our website, all information about our organization is there. You can see what work we do. Disadvantages, there's higher setup costs because you have to set up the website. There's maintenance costs of it, there's management of the site as well. If you're doing kind of a voluntary kind of DIY basis, normally the content quality won't be great. Sometimes people have too much information, and then the quality of the design might be great either because it's kind of done kind of by yourselves or DIY. There's bound to be someone in your community that's web design or as good as social media. There's bound to be someone, young person that's maybe in college or in TY that would build updates and manage this for you. Or some maybe that's just basically, you know, maybe working part-time and has a bit of free time in their hands, or maybe retired and wants to do some of this and they can upskill on it. You know, you can learn this very, very, very quickly, and there's lots of free tools and design tools you can use, and a lot of free web builders you can use as well, that you don't have to be a software engineer to figure out. And it'll keep the costs down, but it's important that you kind of update and keep it maintained regularly. Really important, because it doesn't look good. The option like local companies will do a site for you free, possibly. However, after it's up and running, they might be able to maintain it for you because they've done it for free for you. DIY website builders like Wix or Weebly, there's loads of them there. You need some experience, but they are pretty easy enough to use. Again, you might get funding. So you might be funding out there to develop the site. Look at sponsors. You know, you give them their logos and stuff on the homepage. You know, kind of very much kind of marketing value for them in terms of there's lots of people on your site and visiting your site every day. They might want to get involved, and they might give some money towards it. If you are using payment platforms for your fundraising, like Stripe or PayPal, just look at the terms and conditions, look at the commission they charge as well, and go to one with least amount commission. Hiring a web designer, you might go through that in detail. Is there. It's basically making sure that when you are hiring them, if you're paying from that, they're familiar working with community volunteer organizations, and they're very clear in terms of what you want, and you're very clear in terms of what they do for you. Very important, and you can agree on a brief for the design and what to be done, and you agree on a price. That's really important, and get that brief signed off on by you and by them, so there's no questions after saying, well, I thought it was maybe 5 pages. No, I said 3. That kind of stuff. Or, you know, it was only 50 euros a page for the first 3 pages, now it's 200 euros a page for afterwards. All that should be documented and signed off on board with. Too many people are being ripped off by web designers, and too many web designers are kind of sick of people thinking they're being ripped off. So it just basically means there's a lack of communication between both. But it's important. If you're getting grants, you need to have 3 quotations as well. There's lots and lots of web designers out there around the county that you know, they're local. Use them local if you can. These are an example of a website that has got a very good fundraising page. This is Pieta that you're all familiar with. What I like about Pieta is, why I use an example, is that they give you options what you can donate. So 20 euros, 50, 100 euros, or if you want to donate higher than that, you can. But the most important is that to tell you where the money is going to, which is really, really good. So like, for example, if you give 90 euros, the first session of a dedicated therapy session is paid for by your donation, right? So rather than, see, a lot of people think that if they give money to P8 or to anyone, that's going to go into the CEO's salary, or it's going to go into paying for very fancy offices above in Dublin, or it's going to go into paying for travel expenses or pay for junkets. Because that's what people think, even though it's not the case in most cases. That's what the perception is. Oh, should that money, that's why they're driving around a big Mercedes, because that's where the money's going to, this kind of rubbish. Whereas you say this is where the money's going to. And you can do it for your organizations too. So you can say, look, that for every 21 euros you give us per month, that's going to pay off the loan that we took out and took a chance taken out to make an AstroTurf pitch available for your kids. No, they know where it's going to, so that's fine. That's great. We know where it's going to. So be very clear in terms of where the money is going to, because then they'll give money towards it. So just have it on the site. Very, very simple. Doesn't have to be overly complicated. If you are using fundraising sites, a lot of people do. So a lot of people will do fundraisers like the Kilmeedy one. They'll get 25 people to raise money themselves, and they'll use probably like GoFundMe or Funded or one of those. Okay, that's fine. If you're doing it for your own organization as one large fundraiser, I would probably do it through your own website, because again, you have, as I said, all the access information that you can provide. You can use more of a marketing of it. And it's not a third party, because they'll also know that there's commission going to these guys. So they might be too pushed about giving you money if they know that the site's actually getting commission on it. So Funded, Kickstarter, iDonate is, one that probably all very familiar with, where you can set up your own fundraiser. So they take a 5% transaction fee. So 5% of the money that you're going to give is going straight to iDonate. Some people don't like that; they have an issue with it. GoFundMe, again, 2.9% goes to GoFundMe. They're a very quick and easy way to start a fundraising platform. Very, very simple for people to do it individually, alongside maybe what you're doing yourself. Just Giving is another one. You've got text campaigns, so text to donate. You've got Like Charity, so it's where do you remember when the Late Show was on during COVID, they raised millions and millions of euros for charity. That's how they did it. They basically put up a audience and will talk about charity they're working for, the work they do, and they're usually fairly heart-wrenching stories people had, and they were very sad, and people were there with a bottle of wine on the Friday night with the phone next to them, and they were just donating over the phone, because someone was saying to them on the screen, this is what you need to do, and they're like, geez, okay, for €2.50 I can do this, and they were texting, and they raised millions of euros during COVID through the Late Show, and then other organizations do it as well. So again, text to donate works well for a lot of organizations. Again, there's going to be commission on that in terms of fees. I think the Radio Kerry Bingo works on a text base, I think, isn't it? That goes to the cancer support charities as well in county. So again, similar thing to raise money through general public through texting. Facebook fundraising, so fundraise through your Facebook page and through social media. Again, another way of getting to people all over the world. And using them and their contacts again if you're looking to network and spreading that out to different people. Online lottos, so Club Force is one that most clubs use for the online lottos. So again, the days of kind of going around the pub selling lottery tickets, thankfully is gone. I understand some clubs still do it, but in all, most is done online. We do it through with club, basically it's part of your registration that you can sign up to do lotto, and you just basically do it by direct debit every week, and it's done, and you get your updates as to who got funded or whatever it might be. One way of doing that for a club as well is that if you're a member of the club lotto, you can give discounts on maybe the camps. So if you're in summer camps or Easter camps, you give your players a discount if their parents are members of the lotto. Just kind of gives people and kind of encourage them to sign up to it. So promote your campaign. There's no point having a very good campaign that you promote. It's all about marketing, right? So you need to go out there and tell people what you're doing. In social media posts, so again, hub and spoke model, keep saying it. You're basically getting people to spread the message for you. So if your campaign is kind of quirky, if your event is going to be kind of cool or unique or different, people will pass it on to other people. So check this out or whatever. So basically, your goal really is to get people to click on it and to get to your campaigns where they can make a donation. Okay. Email campaigns, again, if you got a database of members or of subscribers or of clients, and you got permission to email them, email out a flyer or whatever saying we're doing this campaign, this is what we're doing, this is what the benefits are, blah blah blah. WhatsApp groups, so again, comes with that through their WhatsApps, their coaches WhatsApp, parents WhatsApps. Schools do it; they do it through their parents groups. They send all stuff with kids out to the parents, and that's how they get their message out there. Local notes, newsletters. So if you got a parish newsletter, local notes in the paper, community radio, community notes on the radio, that sort of stuff. Do a bit of PR, do a big launch and make a big deal of it. Get the local press out. Kerry's Eye, Kerry Man, the advertisers, the Outlook, Treat Today, and get them to do photo shoots. And again, have maybe some celebrities or some sports people or whatever. They're just gonna add a bit of PR value to it. Do interviews on local radio, on Radio Kerry, or if you're in the West Limerick area, on West Limerick Radio, community radio. Again, just basically letting people know you're there. And you can also get a podcast that too and put up on your site as well and say, look, check this out on Radio Kerry or something. So it's all about marketing and PR. You don't need to be a marketing consultant or a PR genius to do these things. Look at what other organizations have done successfully and copy it. You don't reinvent the wheel. You go on to say a campaign that maybe a club did and they raised a lot of money. Just look at what they did, talk and say, well, what did you do? Well, it's what we did, and this is what we did, what we didn't do. Just copy it. You don't need to be spending money on consultants to do it. If you have a PR consultant locally, ask them to do it for free or get some advice off them, or social media, whatever. But talk to students, college students, work placement, get them to work on it. If a marketing student needs work placement part of the college course, take them on. They become your marketing communications officer for the 3 months during work experience. They know more about than you will, and they'll have time to do it because it's their job. Pay them if you can pay them, but they'll have something very good for a CV saying that we managed a campaign for a local community. If I was taking on someone and they said they'd done that when they were in college, I'd be like, oh, okay, when can you start? As opposed to we did a bit of marketing for a local business. Yeah, if they manage a campaign for you and they raise money out of it, that's a really good thing to have in a CV. So talk to them, to you, about their marketing students and their social media students and digital marketing students and all of those kind of courses, and see if you can get someone in. They can take a placement with a not-for-profit organization. They don't have to be for-profit. Again, post campaigns locally. You want to try to keep away from litter though and have paper everywhere. So again, maybe one billboard will do it, rather than kind of bombarding the place with flyers. I like billboard campaigns because they're very visual. So take the big poster of Dahi down and put up the campaign post about yourselves. Use influencers, like I suppose the poor Kerry GA players are being kind of, I suppose, burnt out at this stage because they're in every photo going on everything. But look, get people involved. Get a lot of charities I work with have ambassadors, like sports people that are well known or business people that are well known that become ambassadors for that charity. Talk to artists, actors, business people, models, whoever it is that are well known, well connected, have a lot of reach in social media. Use them. Use a hook, make it fun, make it entertaining, edgy, but don't be controversial. If you're controversial, it does not work. I've seen some groups kind of very dodgy campaigns, and they try to be funny and try to be kind of like cool, but just the wrong audience, and they backfire big time on them. So have it fun and a bit of crack with it, but don't go overboard with it. Use visuals. Without visuals, a person's not going to understand what you're doing. So you got to show them what you're doing, right? That's whether it be a photo montage, whether it be a 3D generated image of the building or the pitch or the playground or whatever it might be. Use videos. Use whatever you can to visually display what you're going to do with the money, right? If it's only going into services you're providing, or like things like admin or overhead, you can't show that, but then show the work you do. So show again, we did a creche that we did some work with years ago. It was a creche, preschool, and after schools. And all they did was like basically a video, promotion video with the kids, and the kids thanking their sponsors. It was really kind of fun and kind of cute and quirky. But it was very obvious in terms of where the money went to, because you could see that the kids were enjoying themselves, having fun. Now it was staged, but like they were enjoying themselves, but it was very much staged. But it was meant like they could see exactly where what impact their money had. They were giving it, rather than saying that the money goes to paying, poor gosh. Who wants to give money to poor gosh? We give enough money to them. So when you mention it's going there, it's going to cover overheads to keep the show on the road, so we can keep the place door, the doors open for the kids in the community. don't say exactly where it's going to, say, you know, what it's for, if that makes sense. So it's not for promotional videos or promotional material that we've been involved with over the years. So this is the Green School. For all familiar, you probably pass them regularly if you're in Tralee. So when the new school was built, so this was the school I went to back in the day. This is the new school that was built there a few years ago. So they were raising money to build the AstroTurf pitch that's currently there here. So that was before this was here. There was a large gravel kind of multi-purpose site that was used for car parking and kids kicking ball and gravel and getting cut and everything else. So they were raising money for the AstroTurf pitch, but people didn't know where it was. A lot of people thought it was in Carsleeve where there were other pitches, or they thought the old pitch was down here in the old acre years and years and years ago, and they thought it was going there. And people didn't know where it was going to. So we said, look, we'll put a billboard up on the entrance to the school, across road from the Rose Hotel. So when people are driving by, they'll see it and they say, okay, this is what we're trying to do. And what happened was people were driving by, they saw it. And a lot of people were like myself, they got to the school and said, geez, that'd been class if that was there from where we were going to school, you know? And then people wanted to get behind because their kids were going there, their sons were going there, their nephew was going there, or grandsons were going there, and they wanted to get behind it. But without the visual there, people had no idea where the money was going to or where the pitch was going to go to. So a lot of people thought it was going above in Carsleeve. They're saying, well, that's county council or county board on that. And that's where we give money out to county board again, which wasn't the case because it wasn't going there. So simply, this cost €500. We got an architect locally to do it kind of as a favour for us. We paid him €500 to do it. And we put a big 8-foot by 4-foot, I think, billboard on the entrance to the school. And that pitch is now there, as you see, if you go past every day. When the county board were doing their fundraisers in the UK and the States trying to raise money for Kearns, we put together a business plan for them, alongside video and marketing material and brochures and pop-up banners and all that they could use. And the concept here was, Colin Cooper was playing at the time, so it's back a few years. It was very clearly not just football, because everyone thought it was just football. It was also ladies football and hurling. Camogie wasn't in place at the time. And then we went back over the years, so we kind of went back kind of visually back to kind of decades and legacy. And the whole concept was about the legacy for the county board and going forward that you could be part of the new legacy was kind of the campaign we ran. And that raised they raised them like $1 million in the States. But again, you know, there was marketing involved, there was design involved, things like that, and graphic designers involved. But the return was huge. We were involved in Kerry Cycle. Funny enough, we spent a lot of money and a lot of time developing these sponsorship packs and videos and DVDs of the cycle. And in the day, we got 5 sponsors on board that came on board because they wanted to be on board. They didn't look for this stuff. They just came on board, said they wanted to meet us. They liked what the committee were doing. They liked the fact it was a voluntary committee. They liked the fact that 95% plus the money was going to charities. So Lidl, for example, wanted to get involved. They wanted to be involved at the time in a community-based project. And they came on board as the main main food sponsor. Skoda wanted to get involved. Kerry member involved. Radio Kerry involved. Examiner involved at one stage as well. Supervalue were involved. And they all wanted to get involved in a community-run event. So we didn't actually, we've got boxes of these still somewhere archived that never went out. Because they didn't really want the whole kind of like flashy kind of marketing. They wanted to talk to the committee and see what they were doing. And the committee sold them. They gave them a pitch. The pitch was like, they just talk what they're doing. And they were blown away by the fact that the team was run on a voluntary basis for so long without any real core funding or sponsorship. So we brought in like, was it 70 or 80 grand in sponsorship for the first year, and then we took about 100,000 then between food and money in the second year. And then we went up to like 13,000 cyclists when we got kind of out of control. So, but again, it just shows you in terms of the value of the project on the ground is enough impact on the ground as what work we're doing. Companies will get involved and sponsors will get involved. This is a YouTube, not going to take notes, we've gone over time, but a YouTube clip we did for the St. Bernard's Park. And it was basically just an overview of the 3D overview of the pitch, what it looked like when it was finished. And again, that helped us with the fundraising, helped us with sponsorship, because a lot of parents were sick of their kids going on the academy this Saturday morning, getting, you know, soaked wet, getting covered in mud, or the training being cancelled because the pitch was waterlogged or whatever. And now they can go down and they're playing on, you know, probably one of the best pitches in the county, but not the country, like in terms of facilities. And they're delighted, the kids are delighted, and they're willing to then put their hand in their pocket to sustain the loans on it. So it's good. But we have to show them what it's going to look like before they will put their hand in their pocket. Key thing is keep your message simple. if you're looking for money off someone, don't overcomplicate it. Say, okay, this is what the money's going to be used for. Be very specific what it's going to be used for. Tell them how they can get involved, and tell them what the impact will be. Okay, so the impact will be, in our case, 150 kids, 130 kids having proper facilities to play on every Saturday morning. You know, learning the skills, getting out, getting fresh air, meeting their friends, socializing, mental health, physical well-being, all that kind of stuff, right? If you're providing meals on wheels, the impact is the person that's receiving the meal won't starve. Keep it as simple as that. That's, you know, that's reality. You could go into big, long-winded kind of rigmarole about the impact, but say if that person doesn't get food, isn't eat. You know, if that person can't get a bus from the village to the town because there's no transport, that person's going to die, or that person's going to be at home for 6 months a year because they won't get to see anyone. They're the kind of stuff that we talk about when we do evaluations. We talk about impact analysis. We just did a study for a project on Cape Clear Island, or Clear Island off Cape Clear off the west coast of Cork. And their population has decreased since 2016 by 25%. So 110 people on the island. Half of them are retired. So we were saying that if they don't get proper enterprise opportunities on the island, namely with the Irish college there, because that's going to close if they don't get accommodation, in 10 years' time, there'll be no young people on the island, and the language will die. And in 50 years' time, it'll be like the Velasquez. It won't be like the Velasquez. We'll have retirement homes and holiday homes for people who can afford to go during some months and be maybe ghost island for then afterwards. That's the reality of it. And that's we said to the government department that this is what will happen if they don't do something. You've got to be fairly strong on the impact, because you know people step up and they sit up and take notice then. But Jesus, I didn't realize that. We better get involved, help out here. This is simply a very simple campaign, or example of the campaign. You know, there's a playground, help us build it. There's our fundraising target. This is where we're at. This is how you donate, and this is where you get information on it. Okay. Parents think, well, where's the playground going to go to? What's going to look like? What type of playground is it? You know, all these questions. If they've asked 5 or 6 questions, they won't give you money. If they've got asked no questions, normally they will give you money because they can see the value of it. And again, make it very visual, make it very simple. This is a billboard that will go outside the site. This is where the playground is going to go. Straight away, they know exactly. They can visualize their kids playing in there. Target diaspora, as I said earlier on, using the online campaigns. Sponsors. Again, like Lidl that were with us in Ring Kerry, they left us because they took on the LGFA sponsorship, which was massive undertaking for them, over €1 million. But look at the impact it's had on ladies football in terms of marketing value, in terms of numbers taking part, numbers going to games, all that kind of stuff. They were event partners for the Ring Kerry, so we went after partners that were getting involved for a number of years rather than going after sponsors, you know, for one-off sort of stuff, right? And the partners, then we kept them to maybe 5 at maximum. So they got the logos on the jersey. They got a lot of exposure for their brand because it wasn't saturated with loads of brands and logos. Pitch advertising, you know, most pitches have a huge perimeter around them. That's real estate for advertising. You know, if you charge €500 an ad, sign them up to a 3-year deal. So it's €1,500 for 3 years. If you get, say, 100 ads, that's what, whatever it is, was it 150 grand, whatever it is. So again, you're looking at a lot of money potentially raised over a period of time by just really having an ad campaign around the pitch. You can have naming rights for parts of the building, all this sort of stuff. Sponsors walls, we've seen it, so people basically have their names on a wall, or like for families, or for like say maybe gold members or bronze members or platinum members, that kind of stuff. Again, suppose sponsorship is underutilized. People don't go after companies, which I don't understand why they don't, because companies have a responsibility to give money back to the communities. Identify companies that are targeting your customers as well. Now, I don't know what that, I probably would take that off my slide, because what you don't want is basically McDonald's, nothing wrong with McDonald's, but you want McDonald's like basically sponsoring the local creche. You know, okay, you want like, you know, Heineken sponsoring the local under 14 team. You want to be careful in terms of who you're kind of partnering with from an ethical perspective, and also I suppose from a purely PR perspective as well. So again, normally local companies want to get involved because they're local, their kids are involved, their employees' kids are involved. Give something back. Go after suppliers. If you're getting supplies from insurance companies, from oil companies, from gas companies, from printing companies, whatever you're getting your materials and supplies from, go to them and say, look, we're giving you bloody couple of grand a year here. You sponsor a race night or you sponsor a race card. If they say we won't, then you say, grand, we'll take our business elsewhere. And then they will give you something. If you're buying products in a local shop every week for your kitchen, for your community center or your daycare, whatever, go to them and say, look, we're giving you money every week here. Give us something back. Unless they're very bad business people, they'll give something back. Look at activities that get most coverage. Look, sponsors want to get some sort of publicity. Some don't. Some don't want to be named at all. They just want to do it silently, quietly in the background. But most will want some coverage on it. Say we do a social media campaign on it, we'll be in the papers, we're going to do a launch night, we're going to invite you to that, we're going to do a ribbon cutting, whatever it might be, we'll have your logos all over it. We're going to do a photo shoot for the awards, and we'll have your logos at the back on a pop-up banner, all this kind of stuff, right? The benefits of the company, they get tax relief on their donation because it's a marketing expense. So if they give you €1,000, that's €1,000 off their taxable income. So they reduce their income by €1,000, they get tax relief on that. So it's a marketing cost. There's probably more value in giving €1,000 to a local community group that's going to get you publicity for free in the newspaper than spending €500 on an ad for the newspaper. Way more value. So you think, they should know this, but they don't know what you kind of outline it for them or highlight it for them. Identify key people. So there's no point cold calling a company. Talk to people that you know that works in the company. So if you know someone working in a company at a high level and they have a name, get them to present it for you because they know the people in there rather than you knocking on the door saying, hi, how are you? And they know who you are. Okay. Look, what I was talking earlier on, it's harder to say no to someone you know than it is to say no to someone you don't know. Look at long-term partners. So things like, say, signage deals, sponsorship deals, logos, branding deals, do for 3 years rather than 1 year. Help them as well because they tie in for 3 years with you. They can say no to the other organizations because look, we've already signed into the deal there with the other group for 3 years. But it means you're guaranteed that funding for the 3 years then. Okay, companies that can donate can use it as a marketing tool. There is branding opportunities if they want it on the website, social media pages. Again, as I said, pitches, post or billboards, internally on walls, seen on scoreboards, that kind of stuff. Getting on a homepage site, you can do a photo shoot, whatever it might be. So basically, that's a lot to cover there, and I kind of flew through the last part, and apologies for that. But look, I suppose the bottom line is that there's an awful lot of ways of generating revenue from sponsors, fundraising on an ongoing basis. The key thing is to have a strategy and how you're going to do it, right? Just don't do it, what we do this year, what we do next year, and kind of everything's kind of ad hoc and kind of like, last minute kind of planning first. Be very clear in terms of your strategy every year. Do the same thing every year in terms of the large events. So it's well planned. People know what's going to happen at the same time every year. They can be geared up for local companies know you're going to be knocking on the door at certain times every year looking for a sponsorship off them. And you can plan for it. And you can use that then as a kind of not a guaranteed budget, but an almost guaranteed budget. Do the direct debit schemes. Even if you can't get the donation, the relief from donations, do direct debit schemes anyway, because it brings in regular money every month. You can ask people for one-off €200 or €300, just there's basically giving a donation every month without even knowing they're giving a donation. Use the Power 10 networking, just makes things easier. Grants, if you can get fund grants for operational costs, but don't rely on them because they're not going to always be there. And if you're relying on them and you don't get them, then you're in trouble. And the key thing really is have a good team, well-dedicated team, and it's marketing, communicate everything you do to your community, keep them on board, thank them as well, which I didn't put there, thank them the whole time. If someone gives you €1, thank them. Doesn't matter if you €1, €100 or €1,000, thank them anyway. Also, thank your volunteers. Reward your volunteers, not financially, but reward them with a Christmas party, with a barbecue day, with whatever it is, right? Reward them. If there's an event on as part of your fundraising, like a festival or a gig or something, give them tickets for that because they're giving their time for free. So reward them in some way, but just simply thank them anyway. Okay, so I'm going to send out these to you, the slides. There'll be a few links on there as well that could be useful for you. And as I said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me now. Or if you have any questions afterwards, you can give me an email or send me an email. The other thing is just to remind you as well is next week, next Thursday night, there's an in-person event in the Rose Hotel. I think it's 7:30, memory, is it?
Yes, so I can do a spiel on that.
Yeah, perfect.
But,
Okay.
before I do, anyway, Tom, I just want to say thank you so much for that really informative presentation. So much to think about, and it's great that it's recorded because there's loads of bits that I'd love to go back on as well and really think about it. And it will be available on our YouTube, the Kerry PPN YouTube channel in due course. But about next Thursday night, yeah, so it's going to be in the Rose Hotel. Essentially, it's our plenary networking event. Tom is going to be presenting more information for us. So you're going to be telling us about choosing the right organizational structure for your group. So that's going to be a review of the different types of structures, unincorporated, limited company by guarantee, that's CLG. What are the different pros and cons of that? About a little bit about applying to the regulator, and then the pros and cons of registering as a charity, and kind of costs and admin involved, and kind of what are the key responsibilities for the different types of structures. And you're also going to be providing more information about more of the different kinds of grants and funding opportunities that are available out there as well. We're going to have additional speakers. So Sarah Leahy from Clan Credo will be there. We're also going to have some information tables on the side. Colin Walsh from Law Pro, that's the local authorities water programme, is there. He'll have information about funding that they have. Ken O'Neill from Inland Fisheries will be there as well. And Richard Curtin, who's the Kerry County Council Community Climate Officer, will be there as well, because there's Climate Action Fund funding available as well. We'd ask people to turn up around 6:45, or we'll be doing registration from 6:45, and then we'll hopefully to kick off at 7:30. And we'll have some nice finger food and different refreshments available, and there'll be lots of there'll be some breaks now as well for networking with the different groups and everything like that. And there will be one important bit as well I should mention, is that we're going to be providing some information about the PPN. Maybe some people, it's quite there's different structures to it. Maybe people know they get the newsletter in, but what really is the PPN about? And so we'll be providing information on that. And also we'll be looking to get people's input about what should be on our work plan for next year as well. So that's that's the spiel. Thanks very much. Okay. Thanks everyone. Hopefully look forward to seeing you all there. And please, if you can you RSVP to ppn@kerrycoco.ie just to make sure we've got numbers, especially for refreshments and things like that.
Very good. Thanks, Anne-Marie. Okay, everyone. So hopefully I'll see you all there next week. If you're there, and if not, as I said, you have my email. So if you have any questions after tonight, feel free to email me, and hopefully get to see you again. And thanks for attending this evening. Okay, thanks, Anne-Marie. And yeah.
Thanks again, Tom. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Take care. Bye.
Yehovah.